Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Johnny, and if this is the first time we're meeting, on this channel, I help crime enthusiasts understand the inner workings of law enforcement and criminal investigations by pulling back the curtain a little bit and helping you understand some of the procedures and techniques that law enforcement use to try to bring people to justice. And in this video today, I'm going to answer some questions that have been in my comments section. Sorry for the delay. I've been gone a little bit, had a little bit of a cold, but I'm back, and so I'm going to answer some of your questions on this video. Okay, so let's get to the first question. 2 weeks to remove vehicles. Can you shed some light on basically why it took them 2 or 3 weeks to tow vehicles? It's a good question. I don't know the thought process the investigators had at the time. I mean, anything inside that crime scene tape is locked down by the police and is considered part of the crime scene. So if they had an inkling that that would have been evidence or that they needed to process that, I would have thought that they would have the vehicles towed immediately after processing the parking lot for footprints or anything and taking due diligence to really just clear that entire parking lot, however many hours it took. Once that was determined that all that evidence had been gathered, then, pulling those cars out of there on tow trucks. We usually just did them on flatbeds so that if anything fell off of the vehicles, that it was at least fell onto the flatbed. But I don't know the situation there if they don't have flatbeds or the tow companies that they use. But if they're thinking that could be potential evidence, then I would have thought that those would have been towed within the first couple of days, if not immediately either, just to get them preserved and at least locked down in a secure facility, out of the elements, and then those things are just set, protect them. When you can get to them, then you can get to them. So I'm not really sure why it took them this long. They had some, obviously a good reason for that. Maybe they're not of any evidentiary value that they thought at the time. That's their decision. They're going to have to stand by that. But that's all I got to say about that. All right, let's go to another question. My question, according to the website, they took over 4,000 crime scene photographs. In your professional opinion, does that mean there was a large amount of evidence? So 4,000 is not that many pictures when you consider the totality of this scene. Right, you got to remember that you're trying to tell a story with these photographs, right? You're trying to walk a judge or a jury or people through this crime scene. So you're going to establish this wide shot, then you're going to establish a medium shot, and in that medium shot, you're going to take it clean. Then you're going to put a rule in there for scale with an evidence marker so you can log what that evidence was. Then you're going to take a tighter shot with those markers out, then the same shot again with the markers in, with the rule in. So there's a whole series of photographs just for one specific area. So when you start to multiply that over 3 floors, interior, exterior, the amount of photographs gets to be a little bit overwhelming, and it may seem like a lot, but in actuality, it isn't. So in my professional opinion, 4,000 is not that big a deal. They're trying to tell a story and establish everything there. Okay, let's go to another question. All right, is enough attention being paid to possibly a secondary entry point? Well, I'm confident that investigators focused on every entry point and did their due diligence with photographing, searching, fingerprinting, dusting, everything that possibly they could do to identify evidence with footprints standing outside the window. I'm almost positive that they spent enough due diligence doing that. So let's assume that they know how to do their job, which I'm sure they do. They got a lot of help there, and that all those entry points were taken into consideration. All right, so there's a second part to this question. How likely is it that the killer left bloody footprints at the scene, and could that be a valuable clue in identifying shoe size and type? Absolutely. If the perpetrators left bloody footprints, then absolutely investigators are going to photograph that, put a scale, identifies a size, and if there's enough detail in there, there's an FBI database that I think has every single shoe in the world that's ever been made. They can identify the type of shoe that is. Now, why is that important? It's only important is if you catch a perpetrator that has those type of shoes, because then you can look at the perpetrator's shoes and the shoe prints that were left at the scene, and there's some identifying characteristics. There's the actual standard of the actual shoe, and then there's more personalized evidence that you have with those kind of shoes. How that person walks. Do they walk on the outside of their shoes? Do they drag their feet? Do they walk on their toes? Those kind of wear indicator and wear marks on the shoe of a perpetrator will match that, hopefully, stuff that they found at the scene, which may indicate that kind of ridge detail. Same with outside. If they're stepping in snow or mud and they find some of those footprints, they can secure those with a substance that can help adhere the ridge detail, and then put a cast on there, remove those, photograph those. And then if you catch a perpetrators with those kind of shoes, they can do some comparison in the lab, and then bingo, Bob's your uncle, and we catch the bad guy and he goes to jail for life or worse. All right, so let's go to another question. All right, this question from Holly. How did detectives decide on such a narrow time frame, 3 to 4 a.m., at their time of death? As stated, he didn't know the autopsy wasn't completed until the following Wednesday. Law enforcement released the time of death prior to that. I don't know the accuracy of that. I know that, when these MEs come out to the scene, there's a way that you can start to establish a range of time of death, right? I'm not a medical examiner, but you can look. Remember, the body is usually, for most people, 98.6 degrees, right? The body core temperature. Some may be higher. I think women are a little bit higher sometimes. Men are a little lower. Weight has to do with that. But in a general, 98.6 degrees. Now, when someone dies, you start to lose about a degree per hour. Now, if the medical examiner comes to the scene where the victims are, and they can do a couple things with temperature, body temperature, they can do a rectal thermometer and try to get a temperature, or you can do a liver temperature. Now, liver temperature is a little more invasive, where they have to make an incision and then stick a thermometer into the core of the body and get a temperature. And you can start to see if your body's at 98.6 and it goes down a degree or a degree and a half per hour, they can start to get a range. Rigor mortis, when that starts to set in, blood pooling, and when that starts to show. There's all these indicators that the medical examiner is going to use in their professional opinion to determine a range, right? And so that's why they get paid the big bucks to do that. I'm sure that was done at the scene or close or prior or just partly after that. And that's why it doesn't take a full autopsy, a week later to determine that point of death. It's a very finite window, because once that body gets down to ambient temperature, right? So if the temperature is 95 degrees, it's going to, take 3 degrees to get to ambient temperature, and it's going to stop, right? So depending on what the temperature of the room was, the airflow, all these factors that these experts are going to use to determine time of death, and you just have to trust that when they make that determination that it's accurate. Okay, so the detectives aren't making that determination at all. They're getting that information from the medical examiner, from herself. Okay. Well, guys, that was the 4 questions that really stood out when I grabbed them. Sorry it's taking me so long to put out another video. I've been kind of under the weather, but it's no excuse. I should be putting them out anyway. But I appreciate all the nice comments. I appreciate everybody being here, my law dogs. And if you want to, subscribe, that'd be great. You get notified when I put out some new stuff. And I have some other videos I'm going to be putting out that aren't related to this case, and I hope you enjoy those as well. All right, so thank you so much for being here. Say a prayer for the families. I can't imagine going through what they're going through. So whatever I can do to help out, I'm going to do that, because God bless these families, and we hope we catch this killer. Thank you all so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.